I'm hearing a narrative that there is a political element to this, that Director Cheatle was not like Donald Trump. There were warning signs about this even well before a few months ago.
Did Donald Trump get the junior varsity team and the varsity team got sent elsewhere? What was the story there?
I am told that there's only a handful of his regular details assigned to him that day, and the rest were temps coming from different field offices. Certainly it was a colossal mistake. Colossal. He was planning a Vegas-style mass shooting, and then he was worried that the local law enforcement had spied him.
By the way, my name is Joe McClain. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below. Joining us right now by phone is Susan Crabtree. She is the correspondent for politics at Real Clear Politics. That's realclearpolitics.com. We'll put a link to that in the show notes today, as well as her X profile, because she's been doing a tremendous amount of reporting on the July 13th Trump rally shooting in Pennsylvania. Susan, thank you for being on with us today.
It's great to be with you.
Susan, there's a lot of questions that are surrounding this event. You've been doing a lot of great reporting here, and you have contacts within the Secret Service. One of my first questions to you is, there's talk of a competition of sorts for Secret Service resources on July 13th, the Joe Biden event, the Kamala Harris event, and of course, the RNC, getting ready for the RNC, and then of course, the Pennsylvania Trump rally, where we know the tragedy unfolded there. Is it the case that Donald Trump, according to your sources, your information, did Donald Trump get the junior varsity team and the varsity team got sent elsewhere? What was the story there?
Well, that's not exactly how they put it. Of course, they wouldn't say that. But there is Jim Jordan, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, just came out with a statement and was based on whistleblower information that he had received over the last, since the rally. And he said that there was, that the head of the Pittsburgh field office of the Secret Service was in a meeting where they were discussing the Trump rally, allocating resources for the Trump rally and for the Joe Biden rally, and that was exacerbated by the NATO summit. And of course, we know was also exacerbated by the RNC convention. All of these things, I just can imagine trying to provide protection for all of those events. Then you throw in Vice President Kamala Harris's event in Pennsylvania, 3 events in Pennsylvania. Of course, the Pittsburgh field office, it was the Trump rally and Joe Biden were sharing resources because they usually draw from the closest field office, and that was Pittsburgh. So this guy, the head of the Pittsburgh field office is a special agent in charge. That's his title, Tim Burke. And I had already heard that name, but I didn't want to name him. But Jim Jordan came out with that name. He's going to be a critical witness to say whether there was lopsided allocation, whether it didn't fit the threat base, and that's what my sources are saying, that Donald Trump, that there was outmoded sort of protocols that give current sitting presidents and first ladies sort of priority rather than former presidents. And usually under any other scenario, like Jimmy Carter or Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, even Barack Obama, that their sort of their profile diminishes after they leave office. But not Donald Trump. Donald Trump's, profile has only increased. His rallies are drawing 50,000. That's unprecedented for Secret Service to deal with those types of events, since the last time he ran. So why would you not treat him like this? That would have the same or greater threat than a sitting president, and certainly he's facing more threats than Joe Biden. That's just common sense. So that is going to be a very, very critical question. And I am told that there were a lot of temp, that's the term that the Secret Service sources used with me, temp people because there's a permanent detail that is assigned to Trump. And there's regular people. There are people that filter in and out of that, but usually, you have a core group of people that are assigned to a detail for a certain protectee. And I am told that there's only a handful of of his regular details on assigned to him that day, and the rest were temps coming from different field offices, including the Pittsburgh field office.
Wow, that's raising a lot of eyebrows, to say the least. And then, of course, we saw video come out from the Republican National Convention of the senators confronting the Secret Service Director, Ms. Cheatle, and her running away from them. Now, apparently, there's been a private closed-door meeting with them, the FBI, and Senator Blackburn has come out and said they knew a full 10 minutes before Donald Trump came out on stage that there was a threat, but they let him come out anyway. From your sources, why would they allow him to come out on stage if there was a credible threat?
Well, I have the more... Certainly, it was a colossal mistake. Colossal. But what I've heard, if you want a more measured sort of from the sort of very calm, measured sources within the Secret Service, they're saying that they get a lot. There's a lot of different threats that they suspicious activity that they identify over the radio throughout a rally. And he was likely one of many, many, many people that they radio in and say, I want you to watch this person at 3:00, on a clock level, the area of the rally. I want you to watch this person at 11. This person's doing something strange. This person was outside of the perimeter. It shouldn't have been out that building that he shot the president from, and killed another innocent bystander. It was outside of the perimeter. That was a mistake too. It should have been included in the perimeter, the official Secret Service perimeter, but they had local law enforcement guarding that building. And they saw that he had a backpack on. Backpacks are usually, people take a look at backpacks. They're not allowed inside a magnet. If you don't, if they're not go through the magnometer, then they're not allowed inside. They have to go through the magnometer. And the guy had a backpack, and then when he took out the rangefinder, and we need to know when he took out the rangefinder. And supposedly he took it out when he was on the ground. This is what I'm hearing. He did not take it out. He didn't even use it on the roof because he was acting quickly at that point. And so there's some talk that he was actually just planning. I don't want to use the word just, that was a mistake. He was planning a Vegas-style mass shooting, and then he was worried that the local law enforcement had spied him because they were looking at him a lot, and then he went up to the roof. Now, that is what I'm told is a working theory among senior Secret Service officials, but it doesn't really matter at this point. He did get a clear shot off and almost hit the president and killed an innocent bystander, and 2 other people were seriously injured. It's just appalling.
Have your sources given you any more insider information into the shooter himself? There's so much mystery here. He has no social media accounts. His parents don't seem to be talking too much. There's this news about a gaming 4chan chat group. Was it fake? Was it not? I think it's been reported both ways. I'm not sure which. Do we know anything more about the shooter himself?
Oh, I haven't focused on that. I think that would be an FBI sourced.
Let me ask you then about sort of the blame game that we're seeing going on as well, because the local sources are saying that they're being thrown under the bus by the Secret Service here, that they're, the manager of the town of Butler, Pennsylvania is basically saying, hey, listen, our guys were only supposed to do traffic control. We told them we couldn't secure that building. They knew that. And now we're sort of being left to hang out for the blame here. What is the story there? It seems like it was definitely a failure of communication, but really, who is responsible for that building?
Well, the Secret Service should have been responsible for that building, but because they were using so many temps, I think they were stretched too thin. And from my sources are telling me that they decided that would be outside the perimeter, and anything outside the perimeter is local law enforcement. And they may have stationed some Secret Service inside. Director Cheatle said something to that effect, but I believe it was still local law enforcement. But they knew that they were, they had. The Secret Service is the one that directs the local law enforcement if they're supposed to be inside. So that's a key question. but it was outside the perimeter. And I'm being told that they didn't have very much time to do the advance work. The counter snipers look at a site, and they only had one team of 2 counter snipers. That is critical because they were Secret Service. The other team was local law enforcement. So I've been told, for people that have orchestrated these types of rallies and been involved in Secret Service activities for years, that they would recommend 6 counter snipers, Secret Service counter snipers who are highly trained and extremely accurate, to be there that day. They may get rejected one team. You always ask for more than you might get, but at least 2 teams of 2, so at least 4 Secret Service. And that's not what they had. I think they supplemented with local law enforcement, and they were over-reliant on local law enforcement, and we want to know why. Were they diverted to the Jill Biden event? Were they allocated at the beginning? Was it a misallocation at the beginning instead of a diversion? We can get into semantics here because the Secret Service says it was not there were no diversions from the Trump rally to the Jill Biden event. But we can talk about whether the people who recommended it at the Secret Service in charge of the event asked for something and it was rejected. So it was a misallocation. So we don't want to. The Secret Service likes to knock down facts based on semantics. I've been doing this reporting on the Secret Service since 2014, when there was a Columbia prostitution scandal that was basically a big can of worms, and then there was a series of fence jumping incidents where Barack Obama had to choose another Secret Service director, and he chose a woman, Julia Pearson. And then she lost her job a year and a half later for another security lapse. It was a man in an elevator with Barack Obama with a gun who was not cleared to have that gun, because you always have to have clearance if you're going to have a gun around the president. I broke that story, and a week later, Julia Pearson resigned.
Wow. What does it say to you? Since you have so much experience reporting on the Secret Service, what does it say to you that whistleblowers from the U.S. Secret Service are already coming forward to share what they know with Congress, the House Judiciary, GOP, and making this clear in a letter to the director? What does that say to you?
Well, there were warning signs about this even well before. A few months ago, I reported on a story about a female Secret Service agent named Michelle Herzig, who had a mental breakdown at Joint Base Andrews, where Air Force One and Air Force Two are located, and she was attacking her superiors. And then, so they had to wrestle her to ground. She had a gun on her in her holster, and they had to take the gun away from her. And apparently it was just a medical issue, but a lot of Secret Service sources told me that they considered her a DEI hire because she was having behavioral issues, and there were complaints about her. And she actually had sued she came from the Dallas Police Department, and she sued them for sexual harassment and any type of, and it got thrown out. The suit got thrown out twice. And any type of that kind of background would prevent her from being hired by the Secret Service, should have prevented her. I talked to Ron Kessler, who is an expert, a longtime expert, former investigative journalist for the Washington Post, who's written several books on the Secret Service, and he told me that would be disqualifying. And so she got hired. So ever since that happened, there was an online petition calling for Kimberly Cheatle to resign because she's misallocating resources. And if you go in the online petition, which was posted May 6th, eerily enough, it talks about how training resources were diverted to executive leadership bonuses and DEI hiring priorities and initiatives. And so, people have been upset. When there is a crisis, I do hear from the Secret Service sources that I've cultivated over the last, 16, 18 years. And they were clamoring back in May that there were serious problems and mismanagement going on at the Secret Service. So there were warning signs, and so now they're just outraged. People who put their lives on the line to protect the president, literally, and they're being mismanaged.
So what do you think will be the outcome here? Do you think the Director Cheatle will resign? Do you think there'll be an honest investigation? Do you think transparency will come to the fore and the American people, the taxpayers, will get the kind of information that will satisfy them as to what actually happened on Saturday? Because the conspiracy theories are pretty wild at this point. And is it going to be like the JFK shootings? It'll be decades and decades of documentary films and movies coming out of Hollywood. I mean, what can we expect from your experience?
I think the conspiracy theories aren't helpful, but I do think there's some. I'm hearing a narrative that there is a political element to this. That Director Cheatle does not like Donald Trump, but I don't feel comfortable. I'm not sure if that was the reason. I want to hear from her directly in testimony before Congress. I am hearing that she didn't like him. I don't know whether that influenced her decisions making or not. Certainly doesn't make any sense that if it wasn't threat-based protection, you don't just follow an outmoded protocol that Donald Trump breaks the mold. He broke the mold. There's no former president like him that has ever run again and challenged. Run again for re-election and challenge to the successor in such a controversial figure is breaking the mold. So we cannot be using old protocols that said, we don't give as much resources for former presidents, and we prioritize first ladies above former presidents. It doesn't make any sense. So I think that I'm hoping there'll be a reckoning. But if Joe Biden remains as president, I don't expect the accountability, because we didn't see any accountability for Afghanistan and Navigate. And you saw those Gold Star families finally getting their say last night. But if Biden resigns, maybe there's a chance that Kamala Harris will go ahead and appoint somebody else. But this particular Secret Service chief, Kimberly Cheatle, was very close to Jill Biden. So I have a feeling that Kamala Harris might be a little defiant and keep her on. They seemed defiant last night, although I hear that Kimberly Cheatle, the director, did have a meeting with Donald Trump. I hope she apologized to him. And she's apologized. She said the buck stops with her. So if the buck stops with her, shouldn't she be? She's acting like she says she's taking responsibility. But is there any accountability?
Well, I think that's what the Americans are wanting to know. We want to know, what is the deal here? What actually happened? Who is responsible? And what's going to change and prevent this in the future? I mean, I wouldn't want this to happen to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or anybody else. This is pretty insane. So you're there at the Republican National Convention. What has been the mood there? Obviously, it seems like this is, a lot of people are saying that they've made a martyr out of Donald Trump now, a living martyr nonetheless, but a martyr. So is it a foregone conclusion that he will sweep 2024? What do you think from the tempo and the mood there at RNC?
Well, certainly, we are known for our polls at Real Clear Politics. So I would say, to your readers, go ahead and take a look at. We basically have a snapshot every day of our Real Clear Politics average of polls for any topic, the presidential race, any political topic, any political race, top political race in the federal level. But I took a look at an NBC News poll, certainly not a biased poll. You would think that said that it talked about enthusiasm, because some polls don't show a bump for Trump yet out of the convention. So this NBC News poll talked about how enthusiastic are voters for their particular candidate, and there's only about 30% enthusiasm for Biden, and there's more than 70% for Trump.
Wow. So
that isn't, that is the difference here. It's about turnout. It's certainly with all states with all mail-in voting, or you can drop it off, ballot harvesting, that the Democrats are going to lean on those resources. They've already have resources all over the place to improve their mail-in turnout. And Republicans like to vote in person the day of, but they are trying, and I'm trying to emphasize that it's important to get out and vote. If there's, it all come down to get out the vote. Who's the most motivated? And with the Democrats in disarray right now, they don't even know who their candidate is yet. I do think that, in critical battlegrounds, Trump is leading by a couple percentage points, and it will depend on turnout. And the Republicans have the enthusiasm edge. More than an edge, a chasm.
Yeah, a chasm. Susan Crabtree, I'm very grateful for your time today. Thank you for joining us and giving us some of insight from your reporting and from your sources. RealClearPolitics.com. We're going to put a link to her list of archived articles. The most recent one is on Director Cheatle and the pressure that she's under to resign. Susan Crabtree, God bless you. God love you. Thank you for being on.
Thanks so much for having me and your interest in this.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.